Subscribe to our channel for more animated movies. There are too many stories about the Little Red Riding Hood, so I have taken one which I found easily on the internet.
In the forest, there lived a little and her mother. Whenever the little girl left the house, she wore the red-hooded cape her grandmother had knitted for her. This is why everyone used to call her Little Red Riding Hood. One New Year's Day, in the kitchen, whilst her mother was preparing for the evening, Little Red Riding Hood approached her mother.
Mother, I'm so happy. It's the new year. Will grandmother be joining us tonight?
Grandma is ill, darling. Don't think she'll make it tonight. I was just making her some New Year's cookies.
May I take the cookies to my grandmother?
No, my darling. It's too cold. You stay home. I'll go and come back. And I will brew her some herbs, so that she gets better as soon as possible.
Please, Mother, please. You have a lot to do here. I'll go and come back before you know it.
Okay, but dress warm, please. The Little Red Riding Hood wore her boots and red cape. She grabbed the basket her mother had prepared and left home. Do not leave the forest's path, and please be home before dark.
Okay, Mother.
It sure was cold out there. The whole forest was covered in snow. The Little Red Riding Hood was walking in the forest with joy. Deep in the forest lived a young hunter. He was after a wolf that would enter the homes of the villagers and steal their food.
I never thought I would be spending New Year's Eve all by myself. But today I will catch you, mighty bad wolf. And because of this, everyone will enter the new year much happier.
Having put all the villagers in fear, the wolf was out in the forest for his prey.
I hate snowy days. Can't find anything to eat.
Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood was on her way. She noticed a baby gazelle in the woods. Poor gazelle was shivering from the cold.
Poor baby gazelle. How cold you look.
Little Red Riding Hood wanted to approach the gazelle and help out. But once the gazelle noticed her, it ran away.
Hey, stop! Don't run away! I'm going to hurt you. I only want to help.
Little Red Riding Hood followed the gazelle into the forest. Even with its very slim figure, it was so fast. All of a sudden, it disappeared. Little Red Riding Hood continued going after the gazelle for some time, but then thought it was impossible to find it. She had a look around and noticed she was now far from the forest. She was somewhere she had never been before. The snow made it impossible for her to know where she was. She thought by following her footprints she could find her path. She followed the path, but in time the snow covered her trace. Right at that moment, Little Red Riding Hood felt helpless and began to cry.
What will I do now? Hello? Help! Help! Can anybody hear me? Hello?
Somebody heard her all right, but it was no one other than the evil-hearted wolf. The wolf went towards the voice he heard, and soon after saw Little Red Riding Hood. Without scaring her, he approached her. Seeing the wolf in front of her eyes, she was very scared and began to scream.
Help! The wolf is here! Help! Somebody help!
Psst! Don't yell. Don't yell. I'm not going to hurt you. I heard you calling out and I came to help.
Little Red Riding Hood thought that he meant no harm, so she stopped yelling.
Now tell me, what's a girl like you doing in the forest on her own?
taking cookies till I'm lost.
Oh, no human has ever lived here. And where does your ill grandmother live?
Little Red Riding Hood did not want to tell him where her grandmother lived, because she still had her doubts about the wolf. I can't find grandmother's house from here. If you take me back to the forest path, I could find it there.
Okay, well, come on, follow me.
In the end, the wolf walked and Little Red Riding Hood followed him towards the forest. But the evil wolf had a mighty plan waiting for her.
Once we arrive at the forest path, this little girl will show me where her grandmother lives. That way, I can first eat her, then I can go and eat her grandmother. Now that's what I call a New Year's feast.
After a short walk, the wolf and Little Red Riding Hood found the path.
Yes, here we are. Now do you remember your grandmother's house?
All Little Red Riding Hood wanted to do was to get rid of the wolf at once and hurry up and go to her grandmother. Thank you. I'll take it from here. Anyhow, it's not that far. It's the red house at the end of the forest. Right then, Little Red Riding Hood knew she had made a mistake, but it was now too late.
Really?
The wolf opened his mouth, got closer to Little Red Riding Hood, but right at that moment, hearing a rifle, the wolf ran away in a panic. Little Red Riding Hood was relieved and quickly rushed to her grandmother's house. Meanwhile, the hunter was still after the wolf. He vaguely noticed his footprints on the snow.
I know you're here. I'll find you.
After an adventurous trip, at last, she made it to her grandmother's house. She knocked on the door, heard her grandmother's voice from inside.
The door is open, my darling girl. You can come in.
Hearing her grandmother's voice, Little Red Riding Hood was a little surprised. This voice doesn't sound like grandmother's. It must sound like this because she's ill. Little Red Riding Hood opened the door and entered. All the curtains were closed. In the dark room was her grandmother in her bed with her blanket pulled up to her chest, just laying there.
Thank you so much for coming, dear. Well, what did you bring me now?
Mother baked amazing cookies. She told me you won't be joining us on New Year's Eve, so I thought I might come and see you.
You did well, darling girl. Come closer so I can see you better.
Little Red Riding Hood got closer to her grandmother's bed, but she had a bad feeling about this.
Closer, my dear, a little closer.
Little Red Riding Hood was now one step closer to her grandmother's bed. Her grandmother looked awkwardly different to her. Grandmother, what happened? Why are your ears so big?
So that I can hear you better.
And why are your eyes so big?
So that I can see you better.
What about your arms? Why are your arms so big?
So that I can hug you better.
Teeth? Why are your teeth so sharp?
So that I can eat you better.
Suddenly, the wolf jumped out of bed and threw himself onto Little Red Riding Hood.
Come back here. You cannot run away from me.
Little Red Riding Hood got out of the house and began to run away. But the very fast wolf was about to catch her. Just as he was about to jump over her and grab her, he noticed his foot was stuck. And suddenly he found himself hanging from a tree. When Little Red Riding Hood stopped and had a look. She saw that he had been caught in a trap and quickly went over to him.
Tell me, you dirty wolf, where is my grandmother and what have you done to her? Tell me!
He couldn't do anything, don't worry.
Little Red Riding Hood noticed where the voice was coming from and noticed that the hunter was coming after the wolf.
Your grandmother is okay, little girl. She is resting in my shack. When I heard your grandmother was ill, in order to protect her, I took her to my shack, and I prepared a trap for the wolf. Fortunately, we caught him before he could do any harm to you.
Bad wolf! First he broke and entered my grandmother's house. Then he dressed into her clothes and tried to trick me. But I knew there was something strange about this.
Come on, let's go to your grandmother. And as for him, he can hang here throughout New Year's Eve, and I'll take care of him tomorrow.
And so the hunter and Little Red Riding Hood headed towards the hunter's shack. The wolf yelled after them.
Hey, stop! Don't leave me here all by myself!
It was almost nighttime. Little Red Riding Hood, grandmother, and the hunter arrived at Little Red Riding Hood's house. Her mother was waiting for her in front of their house. When she saw her daughter, she was very happy.
My dear child, where have you been? Mother, it's you! Please tell me what happened.
I will tell you everything, Mother, but first I must apologize. I didn't listen to you, and I left the path in the forest, and you wouldn't believe what happened. I will never ever disobey you again.
Little Red Riding Hood, her mother, grandmother, and the hunter spent the evening together that night, eating, dancing their way into the new year. As for the wolf, this was the worst New Year's evening he had ever had.